Hello everyone, and welcome to Gary Orsum's True Fake News for December 2023. First up tonight, diplomatic love triangle. In recent months, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese returned from his Kiss the Arse of World Leaders tour of China, the USA and Pacific nations, whereupon it was reported that Prime Minister Albanese was referred to on Chinese social media as a handsome boy. But it has now been revealed that the handsome boy moniker did not come from Chinese social media, but was part of a lengthy text message exchange between Albanese and Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and TFN has received a leaked transcript of the text message exchanges between the world leaders. After being referred to as handsome boy, the leaked text messages showed that Prime Minister Albanese responded to President Jinping, "You're my honey love bum." Xi Jinping then replied, "Pookie bear snookums." But the text messages soon descended into graphic exchanges, not of affectionate names for one another, but what they intended to do to each other at their next meeting, with Albanese vowing to "slide my tongue down the back of your trousers." Xi Jinping then promised to bend Albanese over, both publicly and privately, promising that the latter would be more literal than figurative and the former more economic. It is alleged that high-level talks were held to discuss how US President Joe Biden might be encouraged to join them in a threesome. Xi Jinping expressed concern that Biden's age and obvious dementia might make it difficult for him to become aroused, but Prime Minister Albanese suggested that he himself would dress as a 12-year-old girl, as a surefire way of ensuring President Biden becomes aroused. Next up tonight, Donald Trump indicted yet again. Former President Donald Trump has been indicted yet again on a string of charges related to January 6, 2020, where he was solely responsible for the deaths of over 45,000 women and children and the eradication of 6 million Jews. No less than 17,622 charges have been levelled at the former president, and TFN was able to gain access to the sealed documents detailing the long list of charges. The most egregious of the 17,622 charges include failing to close a door behind him that he had entered without congressional approval, not having an ugly wife, failing to demonstrate symptoms of dementia, wanting to put American citizens' interests ahead of illegal aliens, failing to grope 12-year-old girls, not kissing his granddaughter on the lips, not showering with his grandchildren, describing what the thing actually is rather than just saying, "you know, the thing," understanding the difference between millions, billions and trillions. It has been widely reported by the mainstream media that failing to close a door behind him constitutes the greatest threat to democracy the US has ever seen. Unlike weaponising the FBI and DOJ for the purposes of political persecution of a much feared political opponent, with such persecution posing no threat to democracy whatsoever, but is in fact upholding the principles of democracy, even if it openly and blatantly conflicts with those principles. The next story on TFN, climate change crisis broadens. A study conducted by scientists concerned about money, or SCAM, has compiled a new report bringing attention to a series of issues that were previously not thought to be linked to climate change, but now insist are, according to their own fact-ignoring findings. Stubbing your toe or stepping on pieces of Lego in the dark were not normally phenomenon associated with climate change, but the authors of the report insist that there is a clear correlation between these simple misfortunes and the increase in extreme weather events that aren't really happening in greater frequency despite being reported as such. In addition to toe stubbing and the like, lead author of the report, John Moron, pointed to a distinct pattern of climate change that is happening with alarming regularity. We found that between the months of September and December, temperatures in the Northern Hemisphere have been plummeting, resulting in a particular periodic weather phenomenon that we call snow. However, it doesn't last long. In what seems like the blink of an eye, but is in fact a period of around 6 months, the temperature increases greatly, and by June, the temperature has soared to a point where people no longer need to wear a coat and gloves. We've decided to call this catastrophic temperature increase summer. Mr. Moron went on to detail a situation where his daughter's cat had been run over by a car as further evidence of irreversible climate change. On the issue of being run over, a new activist group has popped up who proudly claim to be opposed to the Just Stop Oil movement. Just Stop Breaking are a movement who have a 99.999% approval rating amongst sane citizens who just want to go about their daily lives without idiots getting in their way. A spokesperson for the movement told TFN, "It's not about what we do, it's about what we don't do. And what we don't do is apply our brakes when we see these nongs sitting on the road." And finally tonight on TFN, most charges ever laid against single perpetrator. A man has appeared in a local court charged with what authorities believe to be the most charges ever laid against a single perpetrator. Nicholas Saint appeared dishevelled and unshaven, yet jolly, as he sat motionless in the dock as the charges were read out. It is alleged that Mr. Saint's crime spree was carried out on the evening of the 24th of December. He was charged with the following offences: 3 billion counts of break and enter. According to the prosecution, his modus operandi was attempting to gain access to private dwellings by climbing down through the chimney. Child grooming. It is alleged that Mr. Saint intended to carry out lewd acts with minors by coercing them with the promise of toys. It is further alleged that any children who refused to comply with his sexual demands were taunted by being given a lump of coal. Adultery. Surveillance footage from thousands of homes showed Mr. Saint kissing men's wives underneath the mistletoe. Mr. Saint's attorneys argued that it was the men's wives that were the ones committing adultery, as it was only the women who owed faithfulness to their husbands. It's not Mr. Saint's fault that these women behave like complete sluts, Mr. Saint's attorney was quoted as saying. On that basis, the prosecution agreed to drop those charges. Animal cruelty. CCTV footage showed Mr. Saint whipping reindeer in an attempt to get them to go faster. Coercive control. Prosecutors argued that Mr. Saint's business practices failed to recognise the equal contribution made by Mrs. Saint, and that he had taken steps to assume 100% of the media attention and limelight for the family business. Verbal abuse. It is alleged that at least one woman who caught Mr. Saint breaking into her home was referred to as a hoe at least 3 times. Labour and workplace violations. Whilst it is established in fact that elves work tirelessly to make the toys that Mr. Saint used in his disgusting pedophilic fantasies, no mention of proper or even any remuneration has ever been mentioned in the media. It appears that Mr. Saint has been employing slave labour and abusing dissenters with short person jokes. Mr. Saint was remanded in custody and will be committed for trial at a later date. And that wraps up this edition of True Fake News for December 2023. I'm Gary Orsum, and I look forward to seeing you all next time on True Fake News.